The biggest moment for me, as a dev or, as someone that discovered code was the opportunity for me to be able to instruct a computer to do something. I took the game from the internet and I created a little container that was running as an application on the Linux desktop we were using back then. And then I was like, oh, how do I get to distribute this code? So that's when I learned about GitHub and I hosted the code, and eventually a lot of people started downloading it and getting to even contribute back to the code. Something that I felt like was just solving my problem and people around my community sort of became something that had like a global impact.
I'm seeing Vue applications being used here and there, even used by NASA on their Mars mission.
So the major moment for me was seeing people who are building accessibility tech and sharing it online and showing each other videos of the kind of technology that they've built using the open source software and hardware that I've designed.
You start with this, it's like a roller coaster of feelings. You're like, okay, in the beginning, it's so exciting. It's feeling great. How am I going to work on this task? And then you think of a solution that doesn't work, and then you just keep going down and down and down. I use this moment to push me through other moments that I'm having doubt in.
A major moment for me as a developer would be when I first got involved in open source and contributing back to my community. And a huge part of that was me sharing my work publicly. I get a lot of messages telling me that, oh, Gifts, this thing you created really helped me solve this problem.
I love hearing about these moments of folks working hard to accomplish something meaningful. So what have been some of your biggest moments? Those pivotal points in time that define you as a developer? Maybe it's when you had an aha moment that finally brought clarity to a tough problem or sparked the idea for something new. When a big project you worked so hard on finally shipped, or you learn that someone built something brilliant using your open source contributions. Whatever your moments are, the best way to achieve them is to spend as much time as possible in flow. Flow. It's that deep level of concentration and energy that allows you to deliver at your absolute best, when everything around you just disappears and you see nothing but your brilliant idea or that feature you've been wanting to deliver. But as we all know, the reality is that staying in flow doesn't come easily. For most developers, flow happens when you're focused on what you love most, writing code. Unfortunately, modern software development often means yanking you away from code and into boring, manual work that sucks the fun out of hacking on software and building cool things. For every spectacular yes moment you achieve, like when you finally ship that feature you've been wanting to deliver for so long, there are sadly many no moments. And those really suck. More dangerously, they jolt you out of flow and get in the way of making actual forward progress. Like when CI jobs that have worked for years randomly fail and mashing that rerun button just doesn't work. Or a colleague interrupts you, hoping you know the maintainer of a particular service just because you pushed a commit to it once 6 years ago. So, what do? Well, I have great news. We have a thriving ecosystem, not only filled with great software and a vibrant community, but also invaluable insight. And we've been working hard at GitHub to make it easier than ever before to tap into this incredible resource. For starters, there are millions of open source projects on GitHub that you can use and build on to help you be more productive. But I'm sure you're already aware of that if you're joining me here today. Instead of me talking about the theory of open source, I'd like to turn it over to a few folks to talk a little more about a very cool project they've been working on. It's the perfect example of how developers come together to address a set of common problems, share their work with the world, and invite others in to help.
So Quintander is the biggest real estate in Brazil, and we are totally digital. So we have solutions for renting and selling. My team is responsible to take care of the software scalability tribe, So the only way to scale our organization and our engineer team and quality is to stay on the flow, that people could do their best. For example, to focus on code or just on the core feature help us a lot because we can develop solutions to every step of the software development process. Being part of an open source tool and an open source community means for us because we can not only use those tools, but to contribute as well, to provide solutions and to be part of this environment. We highly use open source tools here at Quintander. So Backstage is an important tool for us because we can improve our developer productivity, our developer experience, to collect metrics of our service. With platforms like GitHub and open source projects like Backstage, we are freeing up our teams to focus on their areas of expertise.
Backstage is an open platform for building developer portals. It was first open sourced by Spotify and later donated to the CNCF in 2020. At its core, a developer portal unifies all of your tooling, services, apps, data, and docs behind a single, consistent UI. Backstage helps you understand everything that's going on in your software ecosystem, regardless of how or where each individual component is running. We decided to open source Backstage to invite the community to help us solve these broader challenges of developer effectiveness together. The Backstage project lives in GitHub and its community is growing exponentially. Backstage was initially built by a small core team, but it really flourished because of the contributions from the developer community at Spotify. Now we're seeing the same effect with the open source community as well.
My passion about open source project is like everyone use your code, everyone review your code. Right now we want to focus accessibility and internalizations because there's so much people have some accessibility problems like visual epilepsy or sound or blind. I think it's more than important to create new features because you can create your product everywhere. You must provide a solution for everyone. Such a cool moment when you realize that something you have been working on and are so passionate about is being used by companies all over the world.
So this was my first time contributing to open source. And even years into my career, I was really intimidated because I didn't know where to start or I didn't know what kind of meaningful contribution I could possibly make. So with FireHydrant's plugin in Backstage, it actually was a really good experience. But once you got into it, you realized and you drew on your skills that you already had working on your current project, your past projects, encourages other developers to be able to contribute and help grow this community as well.
So this project, built and open sourced by developers working for a Swedish company, has gained new tooling thanks to the work of developers at a US company, has been improved and made more accessible by a student in Turkey, and is now improving the developer experience inside of a company in Brazil. How cool is that? Thank you to Miguel, Natasha, Christine, and Erdogan for sharing why they choose to use and contribute to Backstage. And a huge thank you to the more than 1,000 contributors across 6 continents and more than 300 organizations who work on the project. While the Backstage platform is awesome, the global collaboration behind it is not a unique story, and that is a great thing. There are millions of open source projects powered by remarkable contributors who come together to solve common problems in an effort to improve life for us all. It's at the heart of what drives us at GitHub. We are stronger and more impactful when we work together. The numbers speak for themselves. There are now more than 73 million developers on GitHub, including 90% of the Fortune 50, making billions of contributions a year. That is a mind-blowing amount of code being written every day. But what's even more exciting is the collective intelligence being built by the open source community. Just think about it. Every project on GitHub has a complete record of its history, of how decisions were made, of how it evolved. This gives us all the ability to learn how to better solve current and future engineering challenges. What a time to be a developer. At the same time, it isn't all neon cat and unicorns. As you know, there's still a lot about being a developer that's not so great. There are constant demands of you with a seemingly endless stream of work, issues, and PRs. With DevOps, you're expected to know more about everything. Your environment is more complex than ever before, often with thousands of microservices and even more JavaScript frameworks to keep track of. So we need to use our collective insights to help each other automate and build software more effectively. Yesterday, you heard about GitHub features like Actions, Discussions, and Copilot, and how they can help you automate your workflow and leverage the stunning collective intelligence of the community. At the end of the day, it's not really about code. It's about people. It's people that make discussions light up with the best ideas and insights, that build and share actions to automate your work. And it's people that conceive of and build projects like Backstage. We have so many great sessions this week from developers around the world that tap into the insight and experience of others in the software community. Consider checking out B. Dougie's session on continuous delivery with actions, or sessions on secure development later today with Jamie Finnegan from HashiCorp and GitHub's Gray Baker. GitHub's The README project is presenting a series of live guides sharing best practices by developers for developers on topics ranging from automation for code quality, developer onboarding, better documentation, and attracting contributors to your open source project. Emily Freeman will take us on a journey through the decades, exploring what comes after DevOps and how we should modernize and improve our processes to be cloud native. We're so glad you're here, and however you choose to spend your time at Universe, I hope you walk away inspired to keep pursuing those yes moments. The world is filled with no moments. The good news is that together, we're creating the tools, the knowledge, and the communities to reduce them. And just think, for every distraction or unnecessary step we eliminate, you'll have just a few more minutes to stay in flow. Those minutes quickly add up to hours. Multiplied by the massive community of developers on GitHub, we're talking about millions of hours of productive work. It's exciting to think about how this extra bandwidth will shape our digital future. So, let me ask you, how will you take advantage of your extra hours?
My focus is going to be around making sure that we get more projects out of Africa that the rest of the world depend on.
My dream impact with code would be to create a platform for underrepresented folks in tech where they could learn how to code through video tutorials and courses that I would create.
One of my biggest dreams is to just help people be the best that they can be.
The next big project we're working on is trying to make internet and data logging services that require almost no code at all. Like, how can we make it so easy that a grade school student can do it as their science fair project?
We're working on this new project. It's fuel management for airlines. This is amazing because not only are we saving these airlines a lot, we're also saving the planet. Because if you reduce the amount of fuel that is being consumed, you're also reducing the amount of CO2 that is being emitted into the environment.
Focusing on growing the Chakra UI community. We also want to try to create more educational content to educate people to be more open, to help maintain the project, and also support everyone out there in the open source community.